Hey, it's Dave and Evelyn from the camera store, and today we're having a little roundup on some big super telephoto lenses.
Today we're going to take a look at super telephoto lenses from some of the top full-frame mirrorless brands, including Canon, Nikon, and Sony.
Now, we had a blast coming up with scenarios to shoot these lenses, and they're all about fun. They're about capturing some great images and getting this big super reach, which is really unaffordable if you step up into the next generation of lenses.
Yeah, we had a great time with all of these lenses, giving them a lot of time to see how they perform. We put them in scenarios that both made these lenses excel, but also challenge them as well.
I mean, these lenses, you get reach, but you give up light gathering ability, which makes some challenging shooting situations.
Now, of course, we are testing these lenses with using full frame high resolution sensors. So they are capturing a lot of detail. So will these lenses resolve the detail, and how well do they perform? We're gonna get into it. We're gonna start off with the Sony 200 to 600 millimeter f5.6 to 6.3 lens. Now this is an image stabilized lens and is the oldest of the trio. It was the first one to come out in this focal range for full frame mirrorless cameras. And this is Sony's G series lens, although we are getting the white finish and a lot of professional features. You have custom control buttons, you have really great throw in the focusing and the zoom. And Dave and I love this lens at first glance with it. We took it playing soccer at the Red Bull Stadium in New York. We also had this lens for doing birding photography. So Dave had this at Frank Lake. He had a wonderful experience with it, and it's a solid option for Sony full frame cameras. Every time we use it, we enjoy it. It's a great performer. In fact, it was ahead of its time when it was brought out, and that's because of those linear high thrust actuators. It's able to keep up with even the latest autofocusing systems, but it is just a fun lens to use and it performs really well. So we were curious to see how it perform against the new Canon and Nikon lenses.
Well, let's talk about the Canon 200 to 800 millimeter lens, the newest kid on the block here by a month over the Nikon. Now, what you get with this lens is the longest reach. 200 to 800 millimeter range is a very big reach, and it's even more technically challenging to shoot this range. Now, it is the slowest of the lenses when it comes to the aperture, 6.3 to f9 on the long end. That really shook a lot of people the wrong way when they first heard about it. But let me tell you, this lens is very good optically. Now, this is the largest of these three lenses, and it's an expandable telephoto. So when you twist that zoom range from 200 to 800, the lens gets physically much longer, where the other two lenses are all internal zooming, which provides better weather sealing as well. Now, this lens does come with a tripod collar, also comes with all the controls you expect from a proper RF lens. We do have a 9-bladed aperture, which gives us a really nice looking bokeh, as well as very good stabilization, which is a very big factor when it comes to talking about these lenses. Now, I had the chance to go out and shoot with this lens, and when it comes to shooting small birds, you just can't have a big enough zoom. Recently, I was out at Inglewood Bird Sanctuary, and I was able to photograph some beavers, actually. I was very excited about, because you don't often see them on the river. So it was really nice to be able to capture it with a lens. I could really get in some crazy good details and very sharp shots close up. I really quite like this lens from Canon. It's the big white lens, what we're used to, but it's not an L series lens. It's more budget friendly, but it gives you this amazing reach, and I'm really happy with the results I'm getting from it.
Last but certainly not least is the Nikkor Z mount 180 to 600 millimeter f5.6 to 6.3 VR lens. And this is actually the most affordable lens of the trio that we're talking about. And before we get into it, I want to introduce you to our guest that we had to test this lens. We met up with a guy named Spencer Wilton, who does enduro and motocross racing. So let's hear from him. So we're out here in Ypres, and this is Spencer Wilton, who decided to join us today to do some cool stuff. Now, we met because you were here in Calgary for the enduro races earlier in the summer. Can you talk a little bit about what you do?
Yeah, my name's Spencer Wilton, from Calgary, 25 years old, and I race dirt bikes professionally. I'll try to ride over anything on my bike. So this summer I wheelied the roof of a limo, jumped a Lamborghini. We just try to do anything that's out of the ordinary on a dirt bike.
This was such a fun test with the Nikkor lens. It gave us a little bit of action, and it was also kind of a cloudy, darker day. So a really good test for this lens. Now, with this Nikkor lens, we are having this 180 to 600 millimeter focal length. So it starts a tiny bit wider than the others at the wide end, but it also has the brightest aperture. It's 5.6 to 6.3 through the range, and this lens is awesome. I paired it with both the Z8 as well as the Z9, and the performance of it was fantastic. The autofocusing speed, I was really able to lock on quickly to both action sports as well as wildlife when Dave and I were at the Calgary Zoo. It has internal zoom, it has a control ring, it has some customizability to it, and it also has a quick release foot, which I really like. The design of this lens is awesome. The key thing that I wanted to get across, Dave, with this roundup is no matter which of the 3 systems you're shooting with, it is great that they have an option that's the super telephoto range. They're all great performers. We were so impressed with how well they did in terms of autofocusing speed.
100%. I mean, all these lenses perform very, very well. I mean, we've done autofocus tests, we've done sharpness tests, and you're really splitting hairs about which one's better. I mean, there's
we were arguing at the zoo,
yeah.
right? Like, here, take a look at this. No, take a look at this. Yeah, it's tough, but
we've been spoiled by Sony for a couple of years now. They have a fantastic 2-600, which is very well received. I've used it a lot. I mean, shooting rugby, for instance, with my daughter, it's been perfect. This is a great lens for that. But now Nikon people and Canon people have something that they can celebrate as well with a very comparable lens. Now with the Canon, you have that extra reach if you wanted to go that far, but there's a trade-off that it's an f9, and we really need to worry about not necessarily the aesthetics, how it looks, because the depth of field is pretty shallow still, and you can still blow out the background when you're shooting with these lenses. However, you got to watch your shutter speed. That's the biggest thing.
Yeah, and I mean, we do have the advantage of having both in-body image stabilization as well as optical stabilization with all of these lenses. And so if you're someone that's still coming over from a DSLR system, I think you'll be pretty amazed with what you're able to do with it. It's kind of unexpected. And this is why in the full frame mirrorless lens lineup, we are seeing a lot more lenses that are a little bit slower. And you know, it's great to see though that you still get that great performance, and I just can't get over the sharpness of them too.
No, it's fantastic. The other part is the cameras themselves, right? We're shooting at higher ISOs, cleaner than ever. Because even in daylight, a day like today where it's beautiful outside, I'm still going to be shooting at like 1600 ISO. But the new generation cameras can accept that very nicely, and you're getting remarkable image quality. And so I'm not worried about that anymore, that f9. But overall, these lenses are fun. I mean, you go out, they don't weigh you down. They're not super heavy lenses.
Yeah, they're still fairly compact. Like most of them all weigh around 2 kilograms, which in the grand scheme of things, it feels light. Like it's lighter than you would expect.
Yeah, and so there are lenses of that range if you want to go up to, if you're fortunate enough to have like the money for a 600 f4 in any of these brands, that's great. And those lenses will outperform as far as sharpness goes and as far as the looks go.
Yeah.
But there are several photographers who have the luxury of owning 600 f4s and these monster lenses that are in the 5 digits. But I find most of these photographers are buying these lenses as well, or switching these lenses outright because they love the flexibility that it gives them. If you have a 600 f4, you have to be that human zoom. You have to be the one who walks back and forth.
Yeah.
But with these lenses, so much easier to deal with.
Yeah, and again, if you're doing stuff like community sports, you're shooting birds, you're doing, you know, photography of action, and you want to be able to have that range and that flexibility, this is just such a phenomenal option and a great pairing with these full frame mirrorless cameras. With Sony in particular, I have to mention that there are some other third-party options, but the Sony one is the one that keeps up the best with their autofocusing system. And we're seeing the same thing with, you know, the RF compared to old EF lenses. This is why you'd want to upgrade. Like if you're still adapting old stuff, that's great, it works okay, but you'll really notice that advantage when it comes to how well it focuses, how quiet they are, and just like the mechanics of how those lenses work.
Yeah, now there are certain things that I like over one lens over the other, and different tolerances. I mean, I do like how Sony and Nikon, the throw between their 180 to 600 or 200 to 600 is about 90 degrees. And so you can quickly go from one to the other. The Canon, I found it's like 180 degrees to go from 200 to 800. So there's a big throw there, and it's something to kind of get used to. And I found myself using that lens in sort of 2 zones, like 2 to 400 or 4 to 800.
I do really like that the Canon has the additional 800 millimeter reach. If you really want to get that far, get those really tight detail shots. It's cool even when you're at a place like a sanctuary or a zoo or something like that, and you want to be able to even just see those details of what they're doing. That 800 is such an exciting thing to have.
I mean, we were fortunate at the zoo. The wolves were very active when we were there, and we got some great shots with that 800 mil, being able to get in that close. Now, the one thing that does bother me with all 3 of these lenses is the tripod feet. I'm glad they have a tripod collar. smaller and a tripod foot, but why are they not Arca Swiss? I mean, I think all major manufacturers should do Arca Swiss. Sigma's got it right, Tamron's got it right. Why do we not see Arca Swiss plates on all the majors?
Yeah, no, I know that really bothers you, Dave, but let's end this on a high note, because I think most of the features that we've had in these lenses have been phenomenal. And really, it's been just a fun excuse for Dave and I to do some really fun shoots. We went to the Wilder Institute Calgary Zoo. We're able to shoot with Spencer Wilton. You got to check out his Instagram and YouTube channel, of course. And then in the past, we did the Red Bull Stadium. What else did we do, Dave? You got the beaver.
I got the beaver. I can't complain about the beaver.
Doing some birding and stuff like that.
But overall, you have to look at these lenses as a lot of fun at a very reasonable cost. I mean, you get the reach and the range that you just normally can't get to without spending huge amounts of money. But we have a lot of fun with these lenses.
Yeah, and they're all pretty close in price. Like we said earlier, they're all well under $3,000 Canadian. And I think it's a very good option, especially if you're someone that is getting into like wildlife, you're doing sports shooting, that kind of thing. This is such a great pairing for all of these full frame mirrorless camera systems. But of course, we want to know, what are your thoughts on these lenses, as well as the systems in general from Sony, Canon, and Nikon? Let us know in the comments below.
And if you like what you see, make sure you like and subscribe.
It's been Dave and Evelyn from the Camera Store. We'll catch you again very soon.
Hey, thanks for watching our most recent episode. If you like what you saw and you want to check out more recent episodes, click up here. And if you're a Canadian and you want to shop local, check out thecamerastore.com down here.